A quick detail with that, they both had the exact same line
Yes.
their last moment on the show.
Get on with it, motherfucker. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Serialized. I'm your host, Kino. We are continuing our discussion of The Wire with season 3. And as always, I have on another Wire content creator who I'm so excited to talk to. We have Big Rich from the Chop Shop. How you doing today, Big Rich?
I'm all right, Kino. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm excited and happy to be here.
That's awesome. Real quick, introduce yourself to the audience and tell people kind of what you do on YouTube and where they can find you.
Let's do it. Well, I go by Big Rich, and I run the channel, The Chop Shop. It's The Wire 24/7. If you guys have looked up any Wire content, you guys might be familiar with my channel. Right now I'm doing an episode by episode recap of the series. I'm excited. I'm excited to be doing that because I'm finding little nuances that I didn't catch the first 15 times I watched it. Now that I'm actually doing, now that I'm doing a breakdown, and I'm happy and excited to bring that to you guys. And Kino, thank you for having me on your channel.
Yeah, no, I'm excited, man. And yeah, I agree with you 100%. The Wire is one of those shows that like you could watch it 100 times and you'll still be discovering new connections, new details, new behind the scenes stuff. It's one of those shows alongside The Sopranos. It's so rich that you won't get everything about the show your first time through. It requires multiple viewings. And I think that's why a lot of people, it's not the most popular show because it's not an easy show to understand from the get-go. But if you put the time into it, I think you'll really appreciate it.
Absolutely. The writing is phenomenal. The acting is phenomenal. And like you said, little nuances. I mean, again, I'm on my 15th, 16th rewatch, and I'm catching things that I missed 15, 16 times, and it's exciting to see little things that you missed as you're doing these recaps, because it's like it brings a new light to the show. You're seeing it from a different angle, different perspective as you find new things.
Oh, absolutely. And we are going to be breaking down season 3 today. So, kind of to set the stage of season 3, we talked last episode about season 2, kind of a controversial season when it first came out because I think audiences weren't used to like the idea that we're going to change the perspective up each season, and so people were like, where's the Barksdales? Why are they such a minor storyline this season? And so season 3 kind of leads us back into the Barksdale story. They were on pause for a little bit while Avon's, doing his short stint in jail. And so we're picking up, although to start off the season, we're starting off kind of a change. The towers have come down. There's a new landscape. There's new players on the field, like Marlo Stanfield. So kind of like, what was your kind of impression of season 3 when you watched it the first time?
Well, first off, I'm so thankful to be on your channel to talk about season 3, because I believe you gave me the best season to talk about. You guys can get in the comment section and debate that, but I think season 3 is a flawless season, and there are so many great talking points. I mean, you have Amsterdam. I mean, the Avon Stringer Bell conflict, the Avon Marlowe conflict. I mean, it was just great dialogue and great quotes, great scenes. Everything about that season is, in my opinion, is flawless. What is your favorite season of The Wire? You don't mind me asking you.
I'd have to say season 4. I really like the school storyline, but season 3 is absolutely up there too. Like this is the focus of this season is probably one of my favorite overall because Bunny Colvin is my favorite character in the entire series. I love that guy so much. I think he's just an incredible character, both in this season and next season. He's a very prominent part of season 4 too. We're technically introduced to him in one episode in season 2 when they have the shooting, but this is where he really gets to shine. And you're right, that whole storyline with Amsterdam and how it kind of mirrors the what's going on with the Barksdales too. Him and Stringer are both two very similar characters. It's why they have that scene in a graveyard where they're two guys who are trying to do something different, kind of trying to buck the routine of their organizations, but it doesn't work out well for either of them. They're punished for kind of thinking outside the box here.
A quick detail with that: they both had the exact same line
Yes.
their last moment on the show.
Give us that line.
Uh, uh, um, I got to look it up real quick.
Get on with it, motherfucker.
Yeah, yeah, my bad. Yeah, no, it was yeah. Get on with it, mother effer. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And that's what Bunny said to Rawls when they were firing him, and that's what Stringer said to Omar and Brother before he took them shells.
Then they both got interrupted. They both kind of didn't get to finish the line because obviously Stringer got shot, and then Bunny got kind of cut off by by Rawls. But yeah, I love the parallels between those two characters. I love that. That's sort of the reason why Stringer goes to become an informant to him, because they kind of see some similarities there between each other. But yeah, I love the focus this season. Obviously, the new element that we introduced in season 3 is the political storyline with City Hall. You know, we've had some dealings with like some politicians before, but we really kind of see the, I don't want to say, I don't know if corruption's the right word, but kind of the rot at the heart of Baltimore, right? It's like this is where a lot of the problems that the police department are coming from. And we kind of see like, oh, you know, Burrell and Rawls, they're asshole cops, right? But there's kind of a reason because they have these higher ups who are leaning on them to be like, make crime go down. I don't care how it's done. I don't care about justice, but just make the numbers go down. And that's why they do the shitty things that they do.
Jay-Z said it best: men lie, women lie, numbers don't. And that was the whole point from the political side of it. They didn't give a damn how the numbers were generated. Just show me numbers in a good way. And Bunny, I mean, Bunny did such a good job eliminating violence that they thought the brother was cheating. They thought he was fixing the numbers to where his what he did with Amsterdam cleaned up that side of Baltimore, the Western, so well that he had to basically come forward with his, with his whole scenario. Do you think Amsterdam was for nothing? Like, is there a solution there? Is there a way to fix it?
Obviously, The Wire deals with some very real life stuff, and the Amsterdam's not perfect. It's not perfect in the show, and that approach is not perfect in real life. We've seen examples in like LA where you see places like this where these kind of open air drug markets that don't solve the, and in the show they say that too. This is not going to solve the issue completely. That's why even the preacher was telling him, it's like, hey, all you're doing is containing it, but now we got to focus on like rehab and we got to focus on all this stuff. So it's a much more complicated issue, but I think that regardless, it was sabotaged by the politicians, including Carcetti, which is, you know, Carcetti is one of these characters who, over the course of the show, it's very easy to hate him because of all the stuff he does. But when he starts out a guy trying to do right. He's trying to help Baltimore. He's, when all his guys are making those racist jokes, he's like, hey guys, don't, come on, like, we're all together on this. But over the course of the show, we see again the forces, the politics behind this stuff change people. You start focusing on the numbers, you start focusing on juking the stats. And so he screws over this guy who he promised to kind of help. He was like, he came to Bunny and was like, hey, I'll help you out here. But ultimately he used it against him for his own benefits. And now we see that all throughout the show. So it was a good idea, but it was sabotaged.
A really underrated scene is when they're talking about Amsterdam with Royce.
Yeah.
And Mayor Royce, been mayor forever, and when he kind of knows that there's a solution here. He's been mayor forever, and he's seen these numbers drop so low to a point that he's never seen in his whole tenure as mayor. I don't think I don't even think he wanted to use that to his advantage to be reelected. I just really thought he saw a way here to be like, hey, you know what? They're going to do the drugs regardless. They're getting high regardless. There has to be a way that we can kind of, but again, his team was like, man, you'd be the most hated man in America here. Like this isn't a viable solution.
Yeah, again, it's that politics. We see even above Mayor Royce, there's the people like I don't remember who it was, the DEA, like from the federal government come in and be like, you can't do this. Even though you're mayor, you can't do this. So, yeah, I mean, it's politics all the way down. But you're right. It's interesting that as corrupt as Royce was, he was the one who was actually willing to embrace this and use it for the right reasons. But then Carcetti kind of weaponized it against him. So no matter what you do, you're gonna get screwed some way on this show. But yeah, I mean, it's a really great storyline there. We have the Barksdales again. We're seeing this is where it comes to a head between Stringer and Avon, right? starting in season 2, we really started to see the fractures between them. They kind of are starting to go down different paths, and that just is what kind of destroys their organization because they're not working together. They're working at opposite goals, basically.
Season 2, that fist bump, that fist bump that Avon left hanging, when he came to visit him. I mean, that shit cut deep, and you, like you said, you see the friction. You basically you see what's coming. And I really wish that, because I love Stringer Bell's character. Idris did a great job, even though that accent slips every now and then. He did he did an amazing job. And I wish they could have came to a point where, look, you handle the business side, I handle the street side. There is no crisscrossing, but it's impossible. There's no way around it. And I also think both of their egos hurt each other. Avon isn't 100% right, in this battle. Even when Stringer basically comes forward with what he did to D'Angelo, which again I believe was Stringer's biggest mistake outside of putting Omar and brother, basically against him. He signed his death certificate, but him telling Avon Avon's code was family. That was the line that Avon would not cross under no circumstances, and Stringer offed his nephew. For Avon to have to lie to his sister, basically, for the rest of existence, knowing what happened to, his nephew. I mean, that was such great writing. It was breathtaking the first few times you watch that shit. Even now, I still get chills when I watch that scene.
Oh, it's an incredible. I mean, it's the pinnacle of their storyline there, where it all comes to a head. Yeah, I know. Like you're right when you say that neither one of them were 100% correct. Like I think a lot of people say, "Oh, Avon was the right one because he knew Marlo was a threat. He knew, you can't trust this guy," and that's true to an extent. But I think people kind of like minimize Stringer's accomplishments, which the co-op for the problems that it had, it's survived the series, right? Even though Marlowe tried to take it apart and take it over in season 5, when he's gone, they still continue to work together. So that the idea of cooperation wasn't a bad idea inherently. It's just Stringer thought he could outsmart everyone. He thought he was smarter than everyone and they would all be manipulated by him. But like we said, guys like Omar, guys like Brother, guys like Marlowe can see right through him and kind of not fall for his tricks. So yeah, neither one of them were 100% right. And when they were working together, that was the best part. But again, when they're working against each other, that's when it kind of comes to a head. It's just an incredible storyline of like friends slowly kind of falling apart there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was Stringer's ego when basically when Avon told Stringer, you're not built for this shit. It was Stringer's ego that made him be like, well, I offed your nephew. The weakest, that one, what does Bodie say? The link in the chain, the one piece that can basically drop us all. You know what? I did what you couldn't do. And it took Avon provoking Stringer to come forward. And again, I think that's Stringer's biggest mistake, biggest downfall, because I do believe, and I made a video about this, I do believe when Brother Mazzone came into that barbershop and him and Avon had the conversation, I believe if he didn't say what he said about D'Angelo, I believe Avon would have fought for Stringer Bell. I believe you're not just going to give your mans up like that if you still got love for him. You're going to show some fight. Yeah, money might not have fixed it, but there was a way, I believe, to get String out of that bullshit. Or you mess around. I don't know. I'd like your take on that. But was there any way for Stringer out of that?
It's hard to say. I think that the combination of both Omar and Brother wanting him dead was very powerful, and Omar is not someone Avon could control either. So it's a matter of like, even if he could buy off Brother, would he been able to get Omar off of it? I don't think that's likely, but it is true that I think that, yeah, one of the reasons he gave him up is because of what he did to D'Angelo, and also because Avon's just realizing that this guy is not on my side anymore. Like we're on kind of opposite paths here. We don't want the same thing, and I can't trust him. to kind of be my number two anymore. And I love Avon's line to Stringer where he's like, "You're not hard enough for out there, and maybe, just maybe, you're not smart enough for them on that side there." So, which I think is very true because Stringer gets played by the politicians and he gets manipulated, and his first instinct then is to go back to the street level and try to have the guy killed, which is not how you handle that situation either. So it's like he's kind of like is a man with no country. That's what Avon describes
And
him as.
Avon had the most logical line when it came to that shit. He's like, "Yo, this ain't street shit." He's like, "You did this. Go fix it. You wanted this is the life you wanted. Yeah, he got you for your money. Figure this shit out."
I think Avon understood his place on the board more than Stringer did. Avon has that line, just a gangster, I suppose, right? He knew that's all I am. I'm not trying to get out of my, zone here. And that's why he goes to jail, but even in jail, he's still, a powerful person in there. He's still fulfilling his function. It's guys like Bunny Colvin and Stringer who try to go outside their lane who really get punished by the system.
Yes, yes, and Bunny's line at the beginning where he's trying to justify Amsterdam with the paper bag analogy is such a brilliant line because it's right. We're just basically going to hide in plain sight. We're gonna as long as y'all don't cross the line, we won't bother y'all. That the paper bag analogy is a brilliant line, man. There's so many brilliant lines in this season. That shit is up there. It's one of the best ones in the season, in my opinion.
Well, and it's interesting because we learn that McNulty came up under Bunny Colvin. He started in the Western, and we see kind of where the origin of McNulty's kind of focusing on the real issues rather than just chasing the stats. That really comes from a guy like Colvin, who was kind of his mentor and inspired him. And maybe even we can see some of the hints of like the rule breaking that McNulty would do throughout the series with Bunny too.
But rule breaking in a way where you think you're doing the right thing, even though you're still breaking the rules.
Well, it's a little different too because McNulty he broke the rules kind of for his own ego. Like it was he wanted to do the right thing, but it was about kind of proving how smart he was. We don't really see that with Bunny. He's not doing it for his own ego. He's doing it because he wants to make a difference. We see that this season, and we see that in season 4 with the schools too. So yeah, not the exact same motivation.
It's a job he's been doing, his whole life, and he sees no change. Let's put a paper bag over it, but again, when you drag a body 2 blocks just to try and cover up what your superiors are doing, and the children aspect of it, the wheel and the cycle is just going to continue here because again, they brought the basketball hoop there thinking the kids would make good use out of it, and 2 days later it's destroyed, and bubble slow mo going through Amsterdam. And not only that, Johnny died. His boy Johnny. That brother was invincible, man. Nothing could take that man out. It was Amsterdam. It was Amsterdam that did it.
Yeah, again, like you said, like just containing it to one area is not solving the problem. And I love that shot with Bunny, or not Bunny, with Bubbles walking through and seeing like all the kind of horror around him. It's a great, incredible shot. But speaking of Carver, that's another very interesting storyline this season where he's kind of like Herc, where he's not the worst cop in the world, but he's a guy who's kind of there to kind of bust some heads, get his stats. He doesn't really care about doing the right thing. And Colvin really sets him on the right path where he's like, you're not a good cop. This is not what a cop is supposed to do. The cop's supposed to learn about his community, learn who's there, cooperate with them. And we really see that change with him next season and in season 5 too. So that was a great journey he went on there.
Absolutely. Bunny Colvin put the chip in his back, for everything that happened between him and Randy season 4 and what Carver eventually turns into. It's all basically Bunny and I'd say partially Daniels, but Bunny really put he really put that chip in Carver's back to get home, to turn homie into good police. Even though Carver, he wasn't the worst of the worst, he had his flaws. But I really think like the light bulb went off when him and Bunny had that conversation. And again, another brilliant scene on a brilliant show. I want to ask you, we haven't touched on it yet, but Marlo, Snoop, and Chris. What are your thoughts on those three? And what impression was made on you season three when you first saw how Marlo was running shit and how thorough and militant and hardcore he was?
Yeah, it's interesting. Marlo, a lot of people obviously don't like Marlo because we kind of, from season one, we're meant to kind of sympathize with the Barksdales. They're kind of our main characters alongside the cops, like in season one. And so we're meant to kind of sympathize with them more than Marlo, who is inherently less honorable, right? I mean, I think they even say that in one of the episodes. The kids in the game today, and they have no code, they have no loyalty. And Marlowe's like that. He's just vicious. We see that in season 4 and 5 when he's the kingpin of the West Side. He kills people not even because he has to, just because he can. He and his guys will just get rid of anyone and do it without honor, leave them rotting in a building somewhere. So we're meant to see him as sort of like a degradation of the morals of the game, right? It's like this guy has no code of honor, really. I think Chris and Snoop are interesting characters. I loved seeing Snoop's sort of evolution as an actor, because obviously she wasn't a trained actor. She was someone who had met Michael K. Williams and a Baltimore native, and they just brought her on the set. Didn't even have a speaking role her first episode. She's just sitting there while Snoop and or not while Chris and Marlo are talking. But over the course of the show, she got to become basically a main character. So that was really cool.
Absolutely. And in all my shows, all my movies, Snoop is, in my opinion, one of the most terrifying female villains I've ever encountered. And for this to be a rookie actress who basically has been in nothing to come on there, and that's all authenticity. So that shit is just I'm not at the level of fear that woman strikes in Big Rich. I mean, like it still is chilling and uncomfortable to watch. Like what was her first real scene where she shot up the corner and Poop barely made it out, where he jumped on the floor, he thought he was dead, and again, like you said, she didn't have much lines, and to watch her growth go from that little pigeon coop scene, to her and Michael's dialogue at the end, how my hair look, Mike, like to watch that transition from her character. I mean, there's not a more satisfying death on this show, not than watching Snoop go, but to stay on season three, she was terrifying. She was terrifying because again, they look like they enjoyed this shit.
I think Chris, again, he's another one like that too, where he's so ruthless, so willing to do this stuff without any kind of mercy at all. A lot of people speculate that he might have been in the military before because he just conducts himself so professionally, so seriously. He's not like a lot of the Barksdale hitmen who are kind of, jokey and not really taking stuff seriously. They're just like focused solely on the mission and nothing else.
And I want to ask you, doesn't he look awkward? Doesn't he look out of place in some of the street scenes? I mean, and again, I think that's by design. Even when he's listening to music, it just seems like awkward and out of place. And I really think that's an awesome element they added to his character because again, he wasn't like a Weebay who straight up, street to the core, or even a Slim Charles. Chris moved, like you said, militant, military, possibly a cop. I think was it Scene Ranter who did the video where, you see Chris in the cop uniform. So was he? What could he have been an officer? Knows their ways and just implements that in the streets?
That's more an example of just someone who was cast as an extra in one scene. They brought it back. Yeah, but I get that. Not the only example we see on this show too, but yeah, I think even you can look at Marlowe too. Another one, like in a similar way, where Marlowe has always struck me as very like almost like a lizard. Like he has like his eyes are just like not human. They're just like so cold. He doesn't even get emotional ever, except for the one of his last scenes where he realizes that Omar was calling him out. My name is my name, exactly. But other than that, he's so cold that it doesn't there's no emotion to it. He kills because it's what he does.
I think him and Chris represent death. They are just, again. I grew up in Queens, New York. You see that walking down the street, zombie master, run the other effing way, man. Get up out of here. Like they were death, and the whole city knew it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting the way people, like, no one directly challenges him, right? He's so powerful. He has such control over it, but he also doesn't have any sort of like love. There's no love for the Stanfields. Like, even the people he works with, like, they come to really hate him, and not, they follow him out of fear, but not out of any kind of loyalty. So, there's some interesting ways to look at that, the kind of evolution that the crime in Baltimore kind of takes once the Barksdales, who are kind of controlling everything, once that power vacuum is established. Who comes to fill it? Someone way worse.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like that line, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't, because you thought Avon and Stringer, McNulty thought he was the worst of the worst. And honestly, I mean, again, Avon and Marlowe do have a lot of similarities, but Marlowe, again, like you said, a lizard, he was death. He was somebody that showed zero emotion, someone you didn't want to cross. And if you fucked up, if you effed up some way, somehow, you knew you were going to be dealt with. There's no way around it.
Yeah, it's interesting too this season, the relationship between McNulty and Stringer. Like, we've set up since pretty much the pilot episode that McNulty has this sort of rivalry with Stringer. They both are characters who think they're smarter than they actually are. And so they just naturally kind of butt heads. And again, one of the reasons why McNulty is chasing Stringer so hard throughout these seasons is because he wants to prove he's the smarter guy. He wants to prove he's smarter than him. But the fact that he doesn't get to, right? Like, right when the trap is about to close shut, they're going to arrest him. McNulty's going to get to slap the cuffs on him like he always wanted to do. He's killed, and McNulty is sort of heartbroken. Not that Stringer died, but that he didn't get to arrest him before Stringer died.
It kind of leads to, I don't know if this is the right way to word this, but was Omar one of the smartest on the show? Because for Omar and brother, but again, this is more Omar's revenge for what they did to his boy Brandon, in 3 seasons of bullshit, between the two. I think it's set up that, I don't want to say Omar's king, but Omar was ahead of the pack with everybody, and I don't know. Am I wrong? Am I wrong with that?
Omar definitely is like one of the most powerful forces in Baltimore because he's so, again, deadly, with his weapons, but also with his reputation. He has this sort of aura where he's invincible, where people literally, he just shows up and people surrender. They give him the drugs, they give him the money, because it seems like he can't be killed. It seems like he's just so powerful. We, of course, learn that's not true in season 5, and it's very interesting who ends up getting him, because that's the person who doesn't buy into his invincible aura. But yeah, no, I agree. I think that Omar, because of his this reputation that I think he's intentionally cultivated with his trademark whistle that he does, he comes across like a Western outlaw, like that, no one thinks they could take him down.
And the best feature and the best characteristic of his character on top of it is, he was gay. And that is such a genius way, because again, the way you viewed homosexuality 25 years ago ain't the way you're viewing it now, and it was more, something that was viewed as feminine, and for this man to basically, I don't want to say they view it as him having female traits, and he's the one that is dominating. He's the one that's fearless. He's the one that has like you said, he has the work ethic, understands the rules of the game, to where, he was almost untouchable. It took a child, to get him out of here. And season 3, I think you saw peak Omar, season 3, when him and brothers working together.
Well, I think the fact that he's gay just adds to, again, his invincibility, because again, like you said, these guys are very homophobic, right? They don't like gay people in general. And so you have this guy who they already want to kill for robbing them, and now he's gay. It's like it adds insult to injury to them. But the fact that they still can't get him, again just adds to this the mystique he has, where it's like, yeah, no, nothing can happen to this guy. But I do love how this season we have Bunk and him talking, and Bunk kind of calls him out, where it's like, you're not a hero. Like, yes, you have a code of honor, but you are still killing people. You're still getting people like Tasha killed, and you're inspiring kids to follow you, which is the kid who kills him was one of the kids playing Omar on the
No
street,
way. No
yeah, he's like,
way.
I want to be Omar now. I want to be Omar now.
No way.
Yeah.
Get in the comment section, y'all. How many of y'all caught that shit? Because now I gotta go rewatch that. I didn't know Kennard was one of those kids. Because again, they're worshiping him like he's a superhero. You know, like he's Iron Man or he's Thor. Like,
And they want to imitate him. They want to imitate him and be like him. And Bunk calls it out as like, you are part of the reason why this community is being destroyed because of your violence. And we see him later on. Omar tries to stop that and honor Bunk's wishes, especially after Bunk helps him out. But he can't. Obviously, he gets pulled back in because of Marlowe.
oh man, and again, you're bringing up the memories of the real Omar walking in that jail cell,
Yeah,
walking in and basically
Donnie
saving him.
Andrews.
Yes, yes. What a again what a fantastic genius show, because those are the little nuances that make this show as incredible as it is.
There's one of the details I love so much about the real life influences of the show. Have you seen or read The Corner?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a mini series, and then obviously it's also a book as well. And one of the characters we follow in both of those is she's a drug addict, obviously, and she's in recovery. We're following this family. Fran Boyd, Francine
Yes,
Fran Boyd, who is sort of the inspiration for the character of Bubbles. She eventually does get clean, but she's a real person. This is not a fictional character. This is a nonfiction book. She later married Donnie Andrews, the real life Omar.
really,
Yeah, and they were introduced by David Simon, because obviously David Simon worked on, and Ed Burns worked on both shows.
right.
So it's so funny to me that the real life Omar married the real life Bubbles.
That's
It's
crazy.
it's like this crossover type thing that, again, what's so cool about The Wire is the way it blends fictional elements with real life elements, where we see
Absolutely.
real world characters. One of the mayors of Baltimore plays one of the politicians on the show.
What about the writer? What about the writer season 5? It wasn't he
Zorzy.
yeah, okay, yep.
Yeah, he was a writer on the Baltimore Sun. William Zorzy. He becomes, yeah, one of the journalists, and there's so many. Robert Colesberry, who died this season, played the cop, and
Yep,
then that wake they had for him was a reference to the real person, not just the character he played. I think the cases that they cite are movies that he had produced, because he was a producer.
really.
Yeah, like they talk about the arson case, and it's a reference to like one of the movies. After Hours was one of the, like, they say like, oh, that case he did at the After Hours Club, he did a movie called After Hours.
Kino, this is why you're great at this shit, man. This is why you're great at this shit. Sorry, man. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, no, no. There's so much like real world behind the scenes stuff that they reference in the show, that it's The Wire's not just fiction; it's also nonfiction too.
Oh, absolutely. And again, the Wire to me, growing up in one of the more shittier parts of Queens, and my teenage years watching The Wire, and having a family member who was on drugs, and I'm not gonna lie to you, The Wire helped me cope with a lot of that shit, because you realize you ain't the only one going through shit, and it could always be worse than what you're going through. And The Wire, I mean, there's so many references. Season 1, where Bunny says you're walking on dead soldiers, the crack vials. I remember sliding on the basketball court because of all the glass and plastic that was stuck to my foot from walking over that shit going to school. Like, there are so many references in the show that I relate to in real life. I mean, we'd be talking for 8 hours if I had to highlight every single one of them, and this is why the show hits home with me because it helped me get out of a dark time. It helped me cope with a lot of shit I was going through, and real shit with The Wire. Outside of the Marlo, Chris's, and Snoop, I done met everyone on The Wire in my neighborhood one way or another. I haven't. There's not too many psychos walking around killing 50 people, but real spit, I've met a Bodie, I met a Poop, and that's why this show hits home with me the way it does, and I can relate to it so well because of, my upbringing.
Well, I think even all the actors, not I'm not just talking about the actors who are real people who played like Snoop, obviously, but even the actors who are trained actors who came in and played characters on the show, all of them grew up in a similar environment like this too. So there's just so much authenticity. Ed Burns was a cop for 20 years. He'd seen these things. David Simon was a journalist for 20 years. He had covered all these crime beats. So they were so intimately familiar with Baltimore and just this life in general that and of course the coroner, which we just talked about,
Yes.
was essentially a year. They spent a year researching that book and eventually doing the miniseries, and that's again all a predecessor to what they would do on The Wire.
I got to put you on the spot. I'm talking to Kino. I'm a fan of yours, and I want to ask you, what is your favorite scene from season 3?
Oh my god, there's so many hard ones. I mean,
Sorry, I apologize.
yeah, there's just so many. Like, obviously, we talked about like middle ground and stuff. These the Stringer Avon, conflict. That's just one of the most incredible scenes. Not just for the writing too, but I think it's shot very well, where the camera's
Yeah,
kind of rotating around them.
yeah.
That's incredible.
And they're each on one side. It's like choose a side.
Yeah, you know what though, a line that really really stands out to me, it's when Lester or McNulty kind of comes into the police headquarters and he's kind of full of himself. He's like, there's no one who can do what we do. And Lester kind of puts him in his place and it's like, you think this is what's going to make you happy, but it's not. This won't fill you up. It's not going to make you whole. A lot. He has this line too that I'll never forget. It's you know what life is, Jimmy? It's the shit that happens while you're waiting for moments that never come. And I think that's one of the most powerful, like, true statements ever. Like, Lester is the wisest character on the show,
Absolutely.
bar
Absolutely. I said
none.
on my last recap, he is my favorite part of Major Crimes, him and Daniels. And to watch Lester's growth, just going from someone who didn't want to be there, and then he just turns into the mastermind, of the whole. And now when he's there, he's like, I'm going to shoot my shot. I'm going after the politicians. I'm following the money. I don't give an F. I'm going after everybody. To hell with my career. I spent all of it in the pawn shop unit. Here I am. I'm shooting my shot. I'm going after everybody.
And even though his career comes to an end too, along with McNulty's for what they do later on, he's happy because again he knew that the job was not your life. The life is your loved ones, and he ends up in that relationship with Chardine. Yeah, but so he's happy. He's got his doll houses he's painting. He's satisfied, and luckily McNulty in this season starts to realize that. He starts to realize that I need to prioritize family over my job. He ends up getting with Beatty. It's great to see her introduced at the end of the season again. Obviously, he slides back into his old ways for a little bit, but he ultimately takes that lesson to heart, and it's nice to see that journey for him too.
I know we're going to be wrapping up soon, but I got a couple questions for you. And this question, we'll probably both be screaming at our computers with this one. How does The Wire? How does No Actors? How does no one from probably one of the between this and Sopranos, the two greatest shows of all time, in my opinion? How does it not win an Emmy? How does no one on this show? I mean, from Bubbles to Wood Harris, how does nobody win an award for the greatest show of all time or one of the greatest shows of all time?
Well, I think there's two reasons for that. One, the show was never popular when it was airing. It was always in danger of being canceled after each season. They never had like contracts for the season until that season wrapped up. So the actors were always like, "Do I have a job next year? Do I not?" It was a nightmare to work with. In fact, David Simon wanted to create a spin-off show about City Hall in Baltimore, but HBO said no. We only want one show that nobody's watching in Baltimore.
Really?
Yeah, so it had very low ratings throughout the entire run. In the modern day, people have really come to appreciate it,
Oh,
but at the
absolutely.
time, it was very underrated.
I got it. Before you continue, what was the spinoff? What did they want to do?
They wanted to do about City Hall, so they wanted to do the political storyline as a spin-off and just follow the events of City Hall. I think they put those elements back into the show because we saw the politics continue on in season 4 and 5, but it was going to be called like City Hall or something, and it was going to be basically about how the politics worked in Baltimore.
Okay, okay,
But yeah, so they want to do that, but didn't work out. But the other reason, and I think this is true, is that it's predominantly a black show, and those
yeah,
tend to get ignored. But in fact, I don't know if you've ever seen It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but they have an episode where they're trying to win an award for their they run a bar. They're trying to win an award for their bar. It's a metaphor for trying to win an Emmy because that show never won an Emmy either. And
right.
one of the characters on that show is Cuddy. He plays a character on that show too, and they're like black bars never win awards. I don't know why, but they don't. And again, bar is a metaphor for TV shows. They're saying black shows don't ever win awards. So that's a couple of reasons why. But yeah, it never got the appreciation that it deserved.
If that show was released now, I believe it would be number one on every single, it would be number one across the board, and I appreciated it for what it was 20 years ago. I didn't view it as, a black show. I just viewed it as just great television, and great story writing. I mean, it probably has the greatest quotes of any show. I mean, Game of Thrones is great, but I mean, yeah, there's a lot of great shows, but I don't want to overstate this. But I think The Wire has some of the greatest quotes I've ever heard in my life on television.
I go back and forth between it's either The Sopranos or it's The Wire that's the greatest show of all time.
I'm with you. 1A, 1B.
They're honestly both, yeah, they're both number one for me. They're
I'm with
very
you.
different shows, but yeah, both very good. But I think that I don't know if I agree though if they released it nowadays would it do really well because the show is very slow. It doesn't start off with a bang right away, and a lot of shows they really want you to do that. Like think of Game of Thrones. First episode, there's that dramatic thing that happens right at the end. They want to hook you in from the beginning, but The Wire's not like that. The Wire's going to be like, we're going to be realistic. We're not going to have a bunch of crazy stuff happen. We're just going to show you how life actually is here. And in the era of streaming, I don't know if that translates well. I mean,
You don't
if
think so?
this was like a
Really?
net.
I think the acting is so great. It's
Oh, it is.
written.
I'm not arguing that. I think that though that like studios have so little faith that their audience will pay attention to watch this that they
Okay.
kind of underestimate how well these shows will do.
I mean, you got so many though. You got Snowfall, Power, BMF, Godfather, Harlem. You don't think The Wire, and again, no offense to all of them, Snowfall was great. It's still a better show. And
Oh, it is. I'm not arguing with that, but I think that a lot of those shows, like we said, they kind of have some more action. They kind of have some more like we're gonna hook you
yeah, they
in a
do.
little bit
Yeah, I
here.
agree with you. I
But The Wire doesn't do that, and I think if it came out today, they'd probably force them to a little bit more. They'd probably be like, "Hey, you better have like a shootout every episode here, so we can, hook people in." But I'm not. I agree with you 100%. It is still the best show ever made today. Like nothing has come close to the level of writing. But I just think that studios like they want to just hook you in real quick and like that they don't have patience for like really good storytelling.
I mean, what did it take 5 episodes before The Wire was introduced? And The Wire is what it's based on. And again, it is a slow burn, but there's so many characters that you're gonna find the one that you get hooked on. You get hooked to. The Bodies, the Bubbles. The secondary characters are what make the show as great as what it is because they might not get the spotlight of a Wood Harris or Idris, but they're just as important as the main characters.
even those two, in season two, they take a back seat for a little while
Yes, they do.
the stories, because again, I think like the main character is Baltimore, right? It's like the city is the story that they're
Yes.
telling, all the different sides of the city, and like McNulty is billed as the main character. He's the first, on the call sheet, but in season four, he's barely around.
Yep.
That's both for behind the scenes reasons, and I think it works though because again, it's not the story of McNulty. It's the story of Baltimore.
Of Baltimore, and it's the only show, in my opinion, that shows every angle of the street game and what it does to, like you said, Baltimore. Baltimore is the main attraction here, and it goes from the streets to the ports to the kids to the politicians to what is it at the end?
The Baltimore Sun.
Yep. The writing, the newspaper, like it touches on every important aspect of a city. And go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, no, I was just gonna say, well, it shows also too that everyone is a part of this system. Like, it's not just the people on the street dealing drugs. Like, the money that generates, it touches the politicians.
Yes.
Like, they benefit from this. It touches all of the school. It affects the school system. It
Yes.
affects the industries. It affects all. It's not again. A lot of shows kind of paint it as like, oh, this is just bad people on the street doing bad stuff, and it only has to do with that side. It doesn't affect everyone else. But like, no, everyone in this city, and you could say kind of America as a
Yes.
larger thing,
Very good.
is all a part. It's all related.
It is connected.
All the pieces matter,
All
as
the
Lester
pieces
says.
matter. Facts. And the like Lester says, you follow the drugs, you got the gangsters, you got the hood, you got this, you follow the money, and this shit's gonna take you to places you don't want to go, and it is just it's such a brilliant show, man. And I mean I'm here wearing the damn what I am hooked. I'm still hooked.
Let me ask you a question. It's hard to pick, but it doesn't have to be in season three. But if you had a favorite episode of the entire series, what would it be?
Oh, for me. That's easy. That's when Prop Joe is introduced, not because of Prop Joe, but episode 8, season 1, and I'm a basketball fanatic as well. When they're playing basketball and Prop Joe is there standing there in his suit, looking all corny, outsmarts Avon Barksdale, who's the big bad, who's the big bad gangster that everyone wants to catch. Here he is being outsmarted by someone from the East Side that we've never heard of before until this moment. I even think the ref was paid off in that game. That's how ahead of the curve Prop was. Not to mention that episode got the famous finger wag. That episode, that episode is so great, and that's my favorite. Let me ask, same question to you. If you had to give me a favorite?
I'd have to say probably Final Grades, the season four finale. I think that episode is just
Oh
like from
yeah.
start to finish is just jam packed with all the storylines, Bubbles storyline, the police storyline, the major crime storyline, the school. It all just comes together so perfectly. I watch that episode all the time. I just put
I'm
it
with you.
on because it's just Lester solves the case,
Yes.
or not solves it, but he
Vacants.
figures out the vacants. It's just
It's a tune.
it's perfect. It's
Well,
yeah, incredible season finale.
I'll put you on the spot. What's your favorite quote? Or narrow it down. Give me one or two.
I it might be a little cliche, but I gotta kind of say all the pieces matter just because that's what I titled I did a 4 hour long
Yeah, I watched
retrospective
it.
of The
I'm with
Wire.
you. All the pieces matter. I've seen it.
I love that line. It just works so perfectly for the series. Again, all of Lester's lines, like again, life is what happens when you're waiting for moments that never come. That's another great one. But
Yeah.
there's almost too many to count. Like all the little epithets they have at the beginning of each episode.
The cold openings.
Yeah, there's just so many that are just so like relevant to the themes of the show. That
Absolutely.
yeah.
I to this day, and I argue that to me, I feel like it might be one of the greatest scenes in the show. A little slow, a little late. When Avon takes D'Angelo to see his uncle in the hospital, a little, a little slow, a little late. Wood Harris should have won his Emmy right then and there. I don't care what anyone says. I agree with your points on the show on why it probably didn't get nominated or wasn't up there, but to be that vulnerable, to be that person that you are, you're able, you are the kingpin, and here you are with your nephew in this scummy ass hospital, just kicking game to him, just telling him that this shit can happen to you. It can happen to me, can happen to anybody. How are you not going to be slow, not going to be late one time? How are you not going to fuck up once?
Yeah, Avon had just such a wisdom about like again, he understood himself. He understood the reality of the situation more so than like any of the other characters. He's like, this is my life. This is how it's probably going to end one day. That's the reality, but I accept it. And there's a lot of respect that goes into having that kind of self awareness of who you are.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, season one, it's McNulty and D'Angelo as the two main characters, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can look at it that way. They're definitely the leads throughout most of the season. But again, I think as we go on, we start to realize that hey, this is a much bigger picture than just these two here.
It's Baltimore. Like you said, Baltimore that is the heartbeat of the show. And I mean, again, just little nuances. When Stinkham's on the floor and you see the rat run past him when he's dead, there are just so many little factors with this show that hit home so hard. Again, I'd love to have a debate with you one day about The Sopranos and The Wire. You know, if
Well,
we can
we're gonna
do
do
it.
that soon. We're gonna do that as a follow up here soon. So, yeah, we kind of hit our hour here. Any final thoughts you want to leave for the audience?
Well, again, I'm Big Rich with the Chop Shop. Again, I'd love for you guys to come check out some of the content. Kino, you do a great job at this shit. I am honored to be here, and I look forward to that debate. I really do, because again, you made your bones with the Sopranos, and there's nobody else on the internet I'd love to debate this with than you. When I started my channel, my goal was to one day actually be talking to you and do a video of the Sopranos versus The Wire. You know, I know in your heart of hearts it got to be the Sopranos, right?
I got love for both shows, man. I got love for both of them. But no, thank you for joining me on this. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I like I said, I love talking to people who appreciate The Wire because again, it's just such an incredible show, and there's not that many of us who talk about it on YouTube. Like Star Wars, all this stuff. There's a million YouTubers who cover the popular
Yeah,
stuff that's
Marvel.
out there, Marvel exactly. But the people who cover these really good shows and who really dedicate themselves to it, it's few and far between. And so, what I wanted to do with this kind of breakdown we're doing here is introduce people, get that kind of cross reference here, get us all build a community around this incredible show. So, thank you so much for being a part of it. Your channel is fantastic, guys. I'm going to link the Chop Shop in the description of this video. Definitely go check him out, subscribe, watch those Wire videos, and stay tuned for the next episode of Serialized, where we're going to continue to break down the show. So, talk to you guys soon.